Hello, welcome to the morning after show. Jared, we're back. We're back in town. As our AP said, the boys are back in town, and we are ready to break down everything that you need to know from a sports or news perspective. Like I said, I'm joined none other by Jared Block, who is on my right. Jared, we had a pretty fun weekend, right? I had a good time at least.
Yeah, we had a great weekend. It's been a long couple days without really knowing what's been going on, so this is our
Yeah.
chance to kind of recap everything. Watched some UFC together. For those of you who didn't know, we were both in Kansas City for the Green Bay Packers versus Chiefs game. Spent the entire weekend there. Both got back super late yesterday night, so glad to be back. While I really enjoyed being out of town, there's nothing like sleeping in your own bed and also waking up to go to your own desk in the morning.
Exactly, right? I was telling you, like, at least we're back. At least I'm back in front of my desk and like in front of my two monitors because I've been absolutely spoiled with my two monitors. We
Yep,
talked
me
about
too.
this before I ended up moving to Nashville, and that was at a time where I was just working off of my laptop. The two monitors that I had were my laptop and an iPad that I was borrowing from my girlfriend. Like that was the extent of the two screens that I had. And then we moved to Nashville. I got my own office. I got my nice PC, and I got two monitors. And I'm absolutely spoiled now. So when I have to deal with just the laptop, it's not fun. I don't enjoy it at the very least, especially because my laptop's getting old. I used it so much that like I've told you this, the N key on the keyboard is completely
Mhm.
broken. So I have to like copy and paste an N every time I need to use an N while typing, and it's just a mess. Mills said, "I bet you were lost without your screens." I 100% was lost without my screens. It was absolutely awful, and I know because of technical difficulties, you were lost without your screens too.
Yeah, imagine if I didn't upgrade my phone before that trip.
Oh, geez, it would have been an absolute mess.
Yeah, I
People talk.
just yeah, I went from going three screens to one phone. Basically, that's what was my weekend.
Yeah, we were making fun of him at dinner on Saturday. I think we were making fun of you for that. Curry went off. People are talking about Curry went off. Yeah, I got to
Yeah.
see bits and pieces of that last night. It's definitely a game that we'll talk about when we get to full court press. But there's a lot that we need to talk about. I mean, we need to go over all of NFL. We need to go over UFC and everything that happened there. We need to go over college football and everything that happened there. We need to talk about college basketball, which starts today. Hence the Duke hat on my head, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, Jared, do you want to talk about anything else? And if not, let's get into it.
No, just I appreciate you guys all hanging out this morning.
Yeah.
Lots of well wishes. Yeah, long day of travel yesterday, but we're back now and ready to get things going for the rest of the week here.
Look, and I will say, you cannot make fun of me if my voice cracks. Jared can attest to this. I yelled so much at that game. So much. I was yelling as much as I possibly could. That's the type of fan I am. Neither team were even my teams, but I was still a guy that was yelling in the stands and even yelling at people once we got into the ride share
Yeah.
lane. So it was a good time for sure. Bodine said it might be an extended show. It definitely will be an extended show. I don't see how we get out of here in an hour, but we're going to at least try. And we're going to start off with talking about the NFL and everything that happened in week 9. Jared, what do you want to kick it off with? Give me a game and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, since we don't really have a chance to do 2 days of recaps, I guess we could blend it into tomorrow too. But
Yeah.
this week was the biggest upset week of the regular season, and it could be that way for the entirety of the rest of the year. So had huge upsets. Titans beating the Rams without Derrick Henry. Huge. Titans are on an absolute roll right now. We'll be sure to talk about them here as the stream goes on. Also saw what was almost an upset last night. We'll talk about Monday Night Football. And then obviously biggest upset of the day, Jaguars versus Bills. That was definitely one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And also Broncos versus the Cowboys. I'm sure there's one more I missed somewhere along the way. Oh, Falcons Saints was another one. So I can't believe that we saw what we saw this past week. I guess there's even more than that. Browns Bengals. Browns upset the Bengals. Giants
Nope.
upset the Raiders. I don't know. The list goes on and on. Yeah, it was one of the craziest weeks ever. You could say the Cardinals upsetting the Niners was actually at the top, one of the top of the list too.
Yeah, you can definitely say that. I mean, this was a Cardinals team that like no one was expecting to win this one. Like they were without Kyler, they were without DeAndre Hopkins. I saw people on TikTok calling it like a bye week for this essentially a second bye week for this Cardinals team, and they still ended up winning and winning by a big amount. So let's talk about a game that we were watching a ton of. Let's talk about this Cowboys game first because that's the game that happened to
Mhm.
be on at the bar that we were at on Sunday afternoon. And yeah, I walked into the bar and we were talking a little bit, and I was like, "How insane is this?" Because it was absolutely crazy to see the Broncos go up. I think it was like 16-0 in the second
Yeah.
quarter, and they just continued to let it roll, even though the Cowboys tried to storm back in the fourth quarter. Give me your thoughts. Is this just a blip on the radar for the Cowboys? Is this a concerning spot for the Cowboys? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that they just came in a little bit more banged up than they would have hoped. So I know that Prescott was dealing with an injury that he, again, I don't think that he should have played in this game, but he looked all right. But there was definitely some concerns there. And then both of the receivers, Cooper and Lamb, were dealing with stuff before the game even started. They ruled Blake Jarwin out. I mean, I guess the only healthy guys were the run game, and they couldn't get anything going. So shout out to Denver. I mean, nobody thought that they were going to win that game. They traded away Von Miller earlier in the week. I'm sure that was a huge hit to their locker room. They turned it around. They looked really good on all sides of the ball. They ran the ball extremely well. And if you were to tell me that they combined for 41 rushing attempts and Javante had over 100 yards, I'd be flipping out right now. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it was insane to watch Javante run. I saw so many of his runs just be absolutely incredible. I mean, he looked great on the field the whole game. So that was good to see from Javante. I don't know. I think it's a blip on the radar. I think, like you said, you didn't want Dak to come into that game hurt, but it did seem like he was a little bit hurt. Seemed like Zeke was hurt as well. Zeke wasn't playing
Yeah.
well throughout the whole first half, and he was having some troubles. So Tony Pollard had to fill in, but Tony wasn't even doing that well. So I think it was just a rough spot for the Cowboys. I think you'll see them bounce back. I think this is probably just a blip on the radar for that Cowboys team. Let's talk about an interesting game to me, a game that we didn't get to watch a ton of, but the Patriots and the Panthers. It kind of surprised me how much the Patriots won by, winning that one 24-6. It especially surprises me when you look at the box score and you see that Sam Darnold had an awful day. 16 for 33, 172 yards, had 3 interceptions. I don't know. It's just kind of it's disheartening to see a Panthers team like this only score 6 points, especially when you get one of the most dynamic weapons in the NFL back in Christian McCaffrey.
Right. I mean, so first of all, I don't think that they should have brought McCaffrey back this week. And second of
Mm.
all, they probably should not have put Sam Darnold in. They said they cleared him on Saturday. I don't. He shouldn't have started this game. He did not look good heading in. He barely practiced all week. And then the Patriots do what the Patriots do. They shut down your best weapon and basically forced Sam Darnold to win the game, which did not happen. So, what's funny about this game is that he actually had more passing yards Darnold did than Mac Jones by like 35, and they still lost by like double digit points. So Mac Jones, 12 for 18, 139 yards. They didn't even like put up that many yards of offense. Like none of the running backs stood out either.
No.
Damian Harris, 15 for 30 and a touchdown. Like that's awful, obviously outside the touchdown. Um, Stevenson got some work late in the game. I mean, they were up by so much that they just handed the ball off to him. So
Mhm.
the defense took advantage of some short
Mhm.
fields and they made things work on that end. And they just didn't have to put up that many points. It kind of felt like this is very similar outside of the Panthers score to what happened last night in the terms of the Steelers got a lot of the short field there and were able to capitalize on some of that with some clutch special teams play. So yeah, I mean the Patriots are going to do Patriots things. I'm not surprised. And I believe that they're undefeated on the road this year.
Wow, I did not know that. That is definitely interesting right there. Um, I just like I go to this Panthers team, and as soon as I see this Sam Darnold thing, I'm just reminded that they have PJ Walker on the bench, right? A
Yep,
PJ
and they
Walker
practiced
that
all week.
yeah,
Practiced all week.
exactly. He practiced all week. I feel like you're right around the corner from them saying, "All right, Darnold, we're done. we're gonna go to PJ now, and it makes sense too because PJ went to Temple. Matt Rule actually coached at Temple when PJ was there, so they have that connection as a head coach and a quarterback already kind of in place. We saw that PJ likes this receiving core. He actually tries to use Robbie Anderson, which I know that's probably a surprise to Robbie Anderson after not getting used the whole year, but like and PJ Walker just being a dynamic quarterback, I feel like PJ could bring some stuff to this team that Sam Darnold just currently is not bringing. And I don't know. I feel like you're 4-5 right now. I don't think you're out of the race for the wild card, obviously. Like you could end up winning out, but you need to make a change right now. You've been on a terrible stretch ever since that big winning streak at the beginning of the year. You need to make a change, and I feel like that change might be benching Darnold and going with PJ.
Yeah, I don't know if they do that, but they could have done it last week and probably looked a little bit better. With that being said, you're not wrong in the fact that they are closer than people think in this wild card race. I'm looking at the
No.
standings right now. After last week's update, we only have two NFC West teams above 500, one NFC North team above 500, and then there are two that are above 500 in the South, along with. So it's basically a race between the Falcons and the Panthers already, I believe, or if I don't know who actually won that game head to head. They played a couple weeks ago, right? So
I want to say it was the
um,
Panther or the Falcons that
the
won, but I
Panthers,
might.
yeah, no, the Panthers won actually 2 weeks
Okay,
ago.
there you go.
So they have the first tiebreaker at least.
Yeah,
They play each other in December, so they could actually the Panthers could actually make a run here if things turn their corner. But let's see what their record is. Anything else on that? And I'll look that up really quick.
no, I just think it's super interesting. I'm looking at the schedule for this Panthers team. They face off against the Cardinals next week. That might be a blessing in disguise if
Could
there
be.
is no Kyler Murray. I mean, it might not be that bad of a matchup for them. Then they face off against Washington, who's 2-6 right now. That's probably going to end up being a good win, or might end up being a good win. We'll just have to see. Then they face off against the Dolphins, who are 2-7. Then that Falcons games, who are 4-4. They have a tough way to end off the year, though. They face off against the Bills and the Bucks to end the year, or maybe not to end the year. There might be more after. Yeah, there's two more games. Then they face off against the Saints and the Bucks again. So their last four games are really tough. But if they want to get a winning record, like you need to start winning now, and you need to win over these next four games probably.
Yep, they could sneak in late in the year
Hmm.
if the Bucks decide to take a game off and
That's a good point.
don't play Tom Brady. So I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll see how these teams start to approach things. It's been pretty normal so far. I'm really interested to see since we're like officially, as of yesterday, we're officially halfway through the regular season. So once we get through the next 4 weeks, I'm really interested to see how that last month actually pans out and how people approach this expanded playoff format.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the playoff format works out, and it's going to be fun to keep up with as we're getting to that point. Now that, like you said, we are through the halfway point for all these teams. Let's talk about the next game. Let's talk about the Bills and the Jags, because I think, we were talking about this before we got on the show. You were saying, I think we went to the lowest scoring game. Then you corrected yourself, and you were like, no, we didn't go to the lowest scoring game because there was this Bills and Jaguars game, which is absolutely insane to see that the Jags ended up winning 9-6 here. I mean, like, we've talked about it so much this year. This Bills team is supposed to have one of the most dynamic offenses in the AFC and potentially in the league. And to get shut out, not shut out, they didn't get shut out, but to only get 6 points against the Jags, it's just, I don't know, man. It's tough. Like, what do you think is up with this Bills team?
Yeah, I need more information on how this happened. I watched the tape and I still didn't even see enough. So imagine playing Josh Allen this week and having him throw 47 times and only getting like less than 10. I think he probably got like 12 to 15 points because he got 50 rushing yards, but man, this is disgusting. I was watching because I played Stephon Diggs in my FanDuel lineup and I was watching that and I was like, all right, I mean, it's not the worst day in the world, but they still have like 3 points at the
Yeah.
third quarter. So I was like, okay, when are you going to start doing stuff now? Uh, but yeah, if you had the Bills in your Survivor League this week, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm definitely sorry. And something that's interesting, it goes to show that maybe this Manning curse is the real deal because Josh Allen on the Manning show before this loss. Tom Brady had a loss to the Saints after he appeared on the Manning show. Matthew Stafford had the loss to the Cardinals after appearing on the Manning show. Rob Gronkowski in week 2 had the loss to the Rams after appearing on the Manning show. And then Russell Wilson and Travis Kelce in week 1 both lost to their next opponents after being on the Manning show. I mean, like, it doesn't get any more real than that, man. You have a sample size of like 6 guys that went on the Manning show and then proceeded to lose the next week. I don't know. The Manning curse might be the real deal.
We'll have to find out. Unfortunately, we didn't get one last night, so
Oh,
that was we had to watch Brian Greasy just complain about refs the whole time, which we'll talk about that game here in a second,
yeah.
because that definitely was a huge topic of conversation.
Yeah, it definitely was. I don't know. Like, I would say it's a bad game and put it behind them, but this Bills team now 5-3, and like that's not gonna get the job done most likely. I mean, the Patriots are. We talked about it before the season how this Patriots team was an underdog, dark horse team. You know, they finally had the quarterback they wanted. They spent all the money to go get defensive guys and some offensive pieces, and they just spent a ton of money in free agency, and now it's close to like they're close to being number 1 in the AFC. They're a loss back from the Bills. They're 5-4. The Bills are 5-3. I'm curious to see when these two teams face off against each other because that could be a big game for this team.
Yeah, it really could. Let's check actually. Mm.
Bacon 23 has told us that Jordan Love had as many points as Josh Allen did. So
Ooh, there
there's
you go.
that.
That's
There
also
is.
not impressive.
Hey, all I hear is that Josh Allen is equal to Jordan Love. That's what you get
Yikes.
for your Packers. Um,
Also, Josh Allen picked off Josh Allen this past week, so that was
yes,
fun.
I saw that. That was the Jaguars. Josh Allen won the Josh Allen Bowl. That's what we're gonna call this game from now on. The
Nice.
Josh Allen Bowl.
Yeah, many people aren't. So this is going to be really interesting. So the Bills play the Jets on Sunday, which they're going to be
Oh,
chalk again. Um,
yeah,
actually, they weren't really chalk outside of Stephon Diggs, but I'm sure that people will shy. Well, they won't shy away. People are too smart for that. Maybe I'm wrong, but the Bills play the Colts the following week, and then they play the Saints on the 25th of November, and then they play the Patriots the following week on primetime. The Bucks, wow, Bills Bucks in week 14, 15 is going to be insane. Panthers, Patriots again, Falcons and Jets. So kind of an easier like I feel like the Bills had one of the easiest schedules of the year, and I know that the Bucks were above them. I think that they're still top 5 though.
yeah, for sure. All right. Do we want to talk about some Monday Night Football? Is that where we're going now? I know you said that
Yeah,
we should. Um, this
we
Bears
can
team put
talk
up.
about Jason Garrett if you want, but I think
Oh
that we should
yeah. Well,
probably. I mean, we don't have to.
we don't have to. We'll save Jason Garrett for next week. Let's talk about this Monday night game. Talk about the Bears facing off against the Steelers. Bears ended up putting up 21 points in the fourth quarter. Justin
Mhm.
Fields pretty much put the team on his back at one point and just said, "All right, we're gonna get this done, and we're gonna at least keep this one close." I know everyone was expecting not only for the Steelers to absolutely blow the doors off the Bears, but I think everyone was expecting this one to be really low scoring as well. It was neither one of those things. The Bears stayed in it the whole game through almost, and the game ended up being really high scoring, actually. We saw 56 total points, which blew that 39 total out of the water. What are your thoughts here from the game you watched last night?
Yeah, I guess the only major thing here is that the game did stay close through 3 quarters. Well, I shouldn't say close. I should say relative to expectations, 20-6 after 3. And yeah, the Bears just started playing up in pace, which is what they should be doing, with Montgomery back there, establishing first down runs, and you can tell that Justin Fields wants to play in a pace up offense. He did it at Ohio State. He was doing it last night for the majority of the time that they were finding success. So if they continue to go that way, again, it's Matt Nagy, so who knows if they'll stick to a game plan there. But if they play up in pace, Chicago can go toe to toe with anybody. I should say anybody, but like they'll put up a fight. Justin Fields continues to impress, even though he made a few mistakes early on in the game. Um, really, really confusing last drive too. I feel like they could have taken some easier shots there and not have to rely on a 66-yard field goal and probably one of the worst environments to kick a field goal in Heinz Field. Um, Other than that, though, a lot of really interesting play calls, and when they couldn't really get anything going as far as the passing offense early, but once they found a rhythm and were playing up in pace and were actually targeting areas where Pittsburgh was struggling, aka not on the sideline and actually down the middle in the seam, like they referenced on the broadcast, they're trying too much to try to throw the ball close to the numbers out of bounds, and they just have to figure out a way to go in spacing against a team like Pittsburgh, who plays the zone defense very well. So when it's just a matter of Justin Fields learning his reps and learning how to read defenses and read coverages faster, and he did it a little bit better when they were playing up in pace because Pittsburgh was tired and they were slower on the defensive end. It's encouraging. I will say that the first half was not, but the second half was definitely encouraging from that standpoint. All in all, offense, I think they looked all right after stalling out in the first half a couple times. On the defensive side, though, I want to say people are going to say it was all the refs' fault, and there were definitely valid points to be made in that. I don't think there should have been a targeting, or I think that they missed the targeting calls on Justin Fields. I also think that the taunting was ridiculous from Cassius Marsh, and then yeah, the Roquan Smith, though, those two offsides were inexcusable. So if you were relying on anything from the flags or anything like that, you cannot take away anything from Roquan Smith's blunders last night.
Yeah, I just want to read the quote that Tony Corrent had, the referee that called the taunting play. He said to a pool reporter yesterday that I saw the player after he made a big play run toward the bench area of the Pittsburgh Steelers and posture in such a way that I felt he was taunting them.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so to full disclosure, I wasn't able to watch the game. I just got back and we were getting things set up at home, so I didn't get to watch the whole game. I didn't even get to see this taunting call. I'm about to go look it up while we're live on the air.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts after hearing that quote?
So they initially thought on the broadcast that maybe when because he turned around and Corrente was already pulling out the flag, but Marsh made contact with the ref on accident. People were saying that that was maybe the reason for the penalty, but it wasn't. Obviously from his statement, he thought that there was a gesture made towards the bench. There was also, arguments made that he was doing it towards the punter, but he didn't even make eye contact with the punter. Corrente was just on the opposite side, couldn't see Marsh's eyes at all. And yes, I mean it was a bad call, but at the same time, like you shouldn't that penalty is going to be called, right? Like if you look towards the bench in that way after a big play, this year you're going to get flagged for it. Normally,
Yeah.
like I don't agree with it, so don't get me wrong, anybody in the chat who's wondering, but I think it's a bad call, but at the same time you're kind of asking for it in a spot where you could have turned around, celebrated with your teammates and just gotten off the field.
Exactly. Like that's what it is at the end. Like I understand it was a bad call, and you're definitely right. You're definitely right in that the ref wasn't able to see who exactly he was looking at. So like it
And he didn't say anything either, and you couldn't hear anything because the stadium was too loud and just all
it,
this stuff.
like I understand, but at the end of the day, like this season they've put an emphasis on this. As a player, you should be taking that into account in every game that you go to. I'm not saying it's necessarily Marsh's fault, but what I'm saying it's a bad call regardless. It's just the way that the NFL is operating this year, so you got to consider it once you go out there. Um, I don't know. I just think it's interesting that Marsh. I think the whole thing's interesting. You're gonna see them talk about it a ton in the off season. I don't think you'll see anything happen during the regular season when it comes to the penalty call or these penalty calls with taunting. But I think you'll see it addressed in the off season. I think you'll see some type of answer from the NFL for it. But this season, like you just as a player, you have to watch out for those calls. You have to know that the refs are being picky with it this year.
Yeah, the one final thing I'll say about that is they alluded to it on the broadcast, but they didn't really put it the next step further. Marsh made a big play against his former team that cut him, and he signed. He was on Pittsburgh. He just signed with the Chicago Bears. Got bumped up when Khalil Mack was ruled out. Had a really big sack. Had arguably the biggest sack of the game at that point. and I don't know. I mean, he could have just again turned around. His teammates were already celebrating with him. He just didn't go back the other way. And I guess maybe in his head, like he did, I know he didn't say anything. Like the broadcast showed that he said nothing and he did nothing. But you could tell that he was certainly fired up about making that play against the team that cut him.
Yeah, for sure. All right. What game do you want to talk about next? Or is there a game that you want to talk about next? I mean, like you said, we can push this over to tomorrow. We have plenty to talk about through the rest of the day. But I don't know. Is there another game that you want to touch on before we move over?
Yeah, I guess we can talk about what I think is probably, well, there you can make an argument that there are two divisions in the league that are extremely competitive right now. And the first one being the AFC West, and the second one being the AFC North. The playoff picture is very, very muddy on one side of the league, and this is definitely the side that it is. Every single team in the AFC West has 5 wins, and only two of them have had bye weeks so far. So that has not balanced out 100% yet. And then on the AFC North side, after the Ravens win against Minnesota, they are 6 wins, and every other team has 5 wins after the Steelers won last night. So these two teams are going to battle it out tremendously, and both of these divisions have back-ended divisional schedules. And the Chiefs now have to take on the Raiders, um, I believe in Vegas. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I think
No,
it's
yeah,
in Kansas. Oh, is it in
it's in
Vegas?
Vegas. It's in
Okay.
Vegas on Sunday night this week. So one of the biggest games of the week, definitely that Chiefs and Raiders game. I still don't think the Chiefs have figured it out. And I don't know whether or not
Yeah.
after watching that game to really say whether or not the Packers defense stepped up or if it was the Chiefs offense that actually played decently well, but I don't really know if either answer is correct.
Well, we were talking about this as we were walking back from like after the game had finished. We are walking to go get our Uber, and we're talking about it, and it's just like I don't know why the Chiefs are so excited about this win. Like, if I'm a Chiefs fan,
Yeah.
I am expecting a blowout in this scenario. If this team has gotten right, you should see a blowout. If Rodgers was on the field for that game, it would have been a completely different scenario. I think that you could have seen that Packers team win by 10 points probably. Sorry. I just think that like I don't know. I don't think I agree with you. I don't think this Chiefs team has it figured out. I think that they got lucky in a lot of spots on that in that game this Sunday. But that game is going to certainly be interesting. That's when you'll realize like what is this Chiefs team going to do? Are they going to be a 500 team that doesn't even end up making the playoffs, or will they be a team that beats the Raiders and shows that they're back and they might be ready to make some type of run towards the end of the year? I don't know. It's going to be interesting because I think this Raiders team does have some legit pieces on the offense, and they could potentially be a team that goes out and gets OBJ. Do we know where OBJ is going yet? Like, I know he was supposed to be picked up off waivers, or waivers opened yesterday.
I believe we'll figure that out today. Somebody's going to grab him.
Okay. Yeah,
Unless
someone is.
if nobody grabs him, then he's just out of the league. So I don't see that being a possibility. Somebody's going to pick him up though.
Yeah, I would agree. Someone's going to pick him up. It's going to be interesting to see who that is. I don't know. Do you want to talk about how the Raiders did against the Giants? Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean they played well, and the Giants didn't have anybody healthy. That's kind of what the moral of the story has been. Kadarius Toney hurt again, which is also great. We didn't roster him at all, not a
No.
chance. We believe we both had him,
Yeah.
or at least I did. So I don't know, man. The Raiders, I don't know. Derek Carr continues to pass a lot, and they also continue to lose in spots where they shouldn't. Um, I guess you can make a case that it was a West Coast to East Coast game, but at the same time, like I don't know, it is what it is.
Still the
There, Darren
Giants.
Waller, yeah, seriously, I mean, Darren Waller being back close to his former self is good. They still have an interesting situation with the running backs. I mean, I don't know. It all just comes down to I don't really know. Actually, execution. Like their defense
Yeah.
just didn't look like when Daniel Jones puts up 110 yards for one touchdown, you don't think that they're going to win the game. So I don't know. That's all I'll say with that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like you expected more out of Daniel Jones if he was going to win this game. He just didn't show it. You would have expected more out of Carr if I told you he threw 46 times this game, but he had two costly mistakes with those interceptions. He gave up that, or he had that touchdown that was good, and that was to Hunter Renfro. But outside of that, like, and that was in like the first quarter. That might have been in their first drive that we saw that Hunter Renfro touchdown. Outside of that, we didn't see much else from this offense. So I don't really know what to say about this Raiders team. You need to score more, obviously. It comes down to execution. And maybe at the end of the day, you can blame it just traveling to the East Coast. But you should have won against this Giants team. And kind of sad that you didn't. And it just shows I don't know how I don't know how the AFC West is going to turn out, in all honesty. I don't know who's going to come out on top. It's certainly going to be interesting to see, especially because that Chargers team even struggled a little bit in Week 9 too. Like we saw the Chargers struggle in places against the Eagles in a game that I really thought. I don't know if they should have blown out the Eagles necessarily. I expected them to win more than by 3 points though.
Yeah, for sure. The main takeaways for me was that people or
Mm-hmm.
different receivers on this Chargers team stepped up when Eckler wasn't really the main focal point, which was disturbing to say the least.
Yeah.
Also, Mike Williams shadowed by Darius Slade. Not I don't see that being. Um, we saw that coming. Keenan Allen, big day, biggest day, by a long shot compared to everybody else. Yeah, not really. I guess I'm surprised that Steven Anderson got as involved as he did. Donald Parham eventually is going to take over for Jared Cook one of these days, but it might not be this season. It might be next season. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Herbert played a great game, in my opinion. 32 for 38 for almost 400 yards, 2 touchdowns. You can't really ask much more. And on the Eagles side, Hurts just didn't have the magic in him like he normally would later in the game. 11 for 7. Like the fact that he only passed 17 times is kind of concerning. I know that they were ahead for, coming into the half and a little bit throughout that second half there. But when your leading rusher is Jordan Howard at this point of the year, it's definitely a little bit concerning.
Not only did Jalen Hurts throw 11 for 17, he had 162 yards, and 116 of those 162 yards went to Devontae Smith. That's absolutely insane to see that type of workload for a wide receiver. And I think that just shows that, like, Hurts needs more weapons if he's going to succeed in this system. I know
Yep.
OBJ probably doesn't go here because he wants to go to a contender, and I don't think this Eagles team is going to end up contending. But, like, this Eagles team is prime for another team that needs for a team that needs another wide receiver across from Devontae Smith.
Yeah, you would expect more from Goddard in this situation. I think Rager is kind of a lost cause now at this point. Unfortunately, I think they've given him enough chances. Watkins is going to always be that boomer bust guy. You need him in that offense to succeed, so I'm okay with Watkins there. But I know that he scored a touchdown, but Kenny Gainwell only getting 2 carries and no receiving production whatsoever. That's concerning to me. I mean, if you're having trouble with some of these guys, you're already running Howard and Scott a bunch. Why not just put Gainwell in the slot and let him do his thing? You got
Yeah.
to figure out how to figure out. You got to do something here. And like you said, I don't think that they get OBJ at all. You would just expect more from Dallas Goddard, especially with Zach Ertz gone now.
Yeah, you see, I mean, like we talked about it. We said that he should be tight end one for this team. Now he had an okay week last week, but it wasn't anything spectacular, and this week wasn't anything spectacular either. So I don't know. I'm sure he's gonna come. He's gonna be better at some point, but right now it doesn't seem like he's that guy for this team. All right, we've gone over NFL a ton. There's a couple more games that we haven't gone over. So if you want to hear more about the NFL, then we will cover that tomorrow. But Jared, if you're ready, I think we're gonna move on to Josh's corner.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's talk about everything that happened in my corner of the sports world this weekend. Let's talk about UFC. We got to watch a ton of UFC together. It was a good time. We had a lot of interesting things happen at this UFC card. We saw and still for both of the championship fights. I thought those were two really good championship fights from what I was able to watch. We saw one of the craziest fist fights ever from the
Yep.
Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler fight.
hmm
Both guys ended up in the hospital like right afterwards. Michael Chandler was live streaming on Instagram in the ambulance on his way to the hospital after that fight. And we saw a couple of other things happen in the prelims that like I found incredibly interesting. Chris Curtis getting that first round TKO. I don't know if you know
Yep.
the story behind Chris Curtis, but this is a guy who's been in other promotions. He's had a lot of success in in MMA, and he was actually on Dana White's Contender Series, and he got a TKO, and Dana White didn't sign him. And so Chris Curtis, it's always been his lifelong dream to be in the UFC, just like I'm sure it is for any other MMA fighter. But he's been bitter towards Dana about this.
Mm.
He's always been so mad at Dana. He's talked shit about him on Twitter. He's talked shit about the UFC on Twitter, and then he got signed to the promotion for this short notice fight. Had like a day to prepare. He's not supposed to be at that weight class of middleweight. He's technically a 170er, and to see him knock out Phil Hawes, a guy that, he was on an incredible run before this. Chris Curtis, he's kind of old, so he'd have to do it now, but like, guy's the real deal. And I think you could potentially see him be a top 15 type of fighter in welterweight, not at middleweight. But, I don't know. I knew that he was good. I knew that he was good enough to get the win. It was definitely a little bit of a dart to throw him in at plus 280, but he was one of the best fighters on the card, and I know he impressed a lot of people. Any takeaways that you have from the UFC card that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think that you nailed it on the main card there. Also, I think that is it Gary or Gary? What is it?
Gary,
Gary?
yeah, Ian Gary.
Yeah. He, from what I saw, was not popular on DraftKings, and a lot of people that I played head-to-heads in on FanDuel did not have this guy at the MVP spot. They went with Usman, which again, to each their own. But
Yeah.
I think that that was definitely a huge edge for us in that one.
Yeah, I mean, like this is so we can, this is Ian Gary's such an interesting prospect because we know that the UFC loves their Irish slash England fighters to come in and absolutely
Mhm.
dominate. We saw it with Paddy Pimblett. We saw it with obviously Conor McGregor. Those type of guys they love to bring into the limelight and love to showcase how good they are. And Ian Gary's one of those guys where it was the story coming up to the fight that his mom said that he'll never be the Conor McGregor of the UFC. He'll never reach that potential. And so he went to go prove his mom wrong. Now you get a first
Wow.
round knockout in the UFC in your first fight. It wasn't a great fight for him. I will say that, like, just saying, like, oh, he got a first round knockout. Great. There was a lot of mistakes he made in that first round. He was losing that fight up until that TKO, but that TKO was a thing of beauty. I don't know if you got to see the whole knockout, but he ended up dodging a punch and then he hit a counter shot that was just accurate and incredible. And I don't know. I think he has big things lined up for him. I'm excited to see what he can do with like a full UFC camp behind him. But it's just going to be a wait and see approach. But that first fight definitely was a good fight for him.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I think that, like you said, the Gaeth G Chandler fight was one of the best things that I've seen personally in the last 6 months plus of UFC. So I'm not like on the technical side of things, but from a viewership standpoint, this one had to have won fight of the evening, right?
You would think so. I know they gave out multiple bonuses this week, but um I don't know if it was one of them that got fight of the night. I would have to go look it up. But it should have been. I mean, like it was just an absolute fist fight. Like it wasn't anything else. At some point, it wasn't even an MMA fight. It was just an absolute fist fight between those two, and incredible to see both of the power that they have. Incredible to see just everything that was put on there. And Michael Chandler off to a 1-2 start in the UFC, but he made his shot or he called his shot the day after. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter. He called out Conor McGregor, said he'd love to
Huh?
fight Conor McGregor next, and I think that would be an absolutely sick fight.
Yeah, that's why Conor McGregor's trending on Twitter, huh?
Yeah, that's probably why Conor McGregor was trending on Twitter. It would be a really fun fight to watch. I'd be interested in it. I don't know if Conor would take it though, but I know he said at some point they'd line up against each other, and I think that would be a good time for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, all in all, I think it was a great event. We have another huge event this weekend. The rest of the year is just going to be one after another.
Yeah, that was the great thing, right? Like the UFC did the right thing here. They had like 2 or 3 events that were just complete snoozers. Like the UFC fan base was not going to want to watch them. I love watching whatever I can when it comes to UFC. So I was excited about those 3 cards. I know the rest of the industry really wasn't. But now this next week we have Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez. That's going to be an incredible fight that I know a lot of people are excited for. Next fight, Vieira and Tate. I mean, it's a good fight. It's not a great fight, but there's a lot of good fights on the undercard that I'm excited for. Fight after that, Rob Font versus Jose Aldo. I know a lot of people are excited about that. Then you get UFC 269 with Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier and Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena and Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal. That's going to be a phenomenal fight. And then you get Derek Lewis, Chris Dawkins, and then to end off the year at UFC 270, you get Gon versus Ngannou, which is definitely going to
Yeah,
be the cap off of all these fights. I mean, that's going to be an amazing card by itself. So, like you said, the rest of the year is just banger after banger after banger, and it's UFC is going to be fun to end out the year.
it really is. Like you said, and I'm excited for all this stuff. I don't. I'm just gonna have to learn from you and learn these names because that's
Yeah.
probably my biggest challenge moving forward here.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna get to educate you a little bit. It's gonna be a good time. All right, let's talk about some college football, Jared, because college football was insane this week. It was a lot of fun to watch. I know your Wisconsin Badgers ended up having a big win against Rutgers. By the way, thank you, Astro Infinity, for subbing at Tier 1. We greatly appreciate it. I would yell, but as you guys can probably tell, my voice is pretty close to being gone already. We got to see that Oregon game. That was a good game for the Ducks against Washington. The UNC Wake Forest game was probably game of the week with having a total of 113 points, which is absolutely insane. And then Ohio State ended up getting a big win against Nebraska, though that game was extremely close. Is there anything that
It
you want
was.
to talk about here for college football this week?
Yeah, I'm so happy that I watched most of the I would say three-quarters of the Wake Forest UNC game. It tailed off
Yeah.
towards the end, and even though I shouldn't have, but uh, obviously big for you. Had Howell had a lot of pieces of this game
Yep.
specifically. That game went off, and yeah, the so people are gonna forget how close that Ohio State game was. It actually
Yeah.
was extremely close all the way down the stretch. And then yeah, I mean a big upset from Purdue, Michigan State falling. They'll probably fall down the rankings a little bit here after that one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, it was a great week. I mean, we even saw Baylor lose against TCU. That was a big upset. I know Baylor was a big favorite this week that a lot of people liked. We saw that Alabama game stay close all the way throughout, which I thought was super interesting against LSU. I think it just shows that like this LSU team is not willing to stand down quite yet. And like you said, seeing Purdue beat Michigan State hurt my bankroll because I had a Michigan State -3 bet, but that's okay. Purdue ended up having a big win there and shows why, they were a high ranked team, or they used to be a high ranked team before they had those bad 2 losses. And David Bell shows why he's one of the best wide receivers in all of college football. 11 receptions, 217 yards, and a
yeah,
touchdown. It's almost like Josh Downs at this point. Like it's almost guaranteed that
yeah.
he's going to get 200 plus yards every week with 10 plus receptions. The guy is incredible.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, so I saw this the other day, and they were talking about this on College Game Day about how Wisconsin, believe it or not, now has not like a stronghold on the division because they're in the Big Ten West. But they're sitting up top there after really what I thought the season was over. So I guess I'll just take that. But they're now sitting up at the top, 4-2 overall. Minnesota has done all right. They've struggled up and down this season, but now I mean, regardless, at the end of the day, I think whoever wins gets destroyed by Ohio State or whoever comes out of that. But
You know,
it's still very, very interesting to see. And the Big Ten has shown this week again that no matter who's playing, one can upset the other.
Yeah. We saw a ton of upsets this week too, which kind of blew my mind. I mean, we saw Boise State ended up winning against Fresno State. I'm sure our AP's pretty upset about that one, considering that Fresno was a favorite coming into that game, and Boise State ended up routing them. Arkansas winning against Mississippi, Tennessee winning against Kentucky. Illinois winning against Minnesota. That's a game that I got to watch like on the TV because it was one of the only games on, and that was a good game for Illinois. They looked really good that game. Um, I don't know, man. Like it was a weird week in college football. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was. We have a couple messages from the chat here. Dear Amplified wants to know how far is Alabama going this year? Well, if they, I don't. At this point, I think that what would you set the line at a Georgia Alabama game right now?
Georgia -7 probably is where I'd set
Okay.
it. I feel pretty confident. I feel like you could probably put Georgia at -10, and I wouldn't bat an eye at it, honestly, just because Georgia's been that good. You got to see part of that game against Missouri, and they just. I
Yeah.
know they were obviously supposed to win. Missouri had a backup QB in. That backup QB was a freshman. So, like, Georgia was supposed to win that game. But watching that defense just looks absolutely phenomenal. So,
We also got a question of what do you think of PJ Fleck signing extension?
think it's kind of a joke in all honesty. I don't know. I've never been a huge PJ Fleck fan. The fact that he got a 7-year contract extension after losing to Illinois, like I don't know. I'm not a fan of it, but I understand. I understand why they did it. I'm personally not a fan of it though.
All right. That is I'm just looking ahead to see if we have any big games, and we certainly do. We have Oklahoma versus Baylor in Baylor this weekend. We also have Michigan
Okay.
versus Penn State, also huge.
Ooh.
And then, other than that, I mean, Purdue versus Ohio State is interesting. Texas A&M, Mississippi is a big game at night, and then I think the others are kind of not washes, but I would say NC State versus Wake Forest should be interesting too.
Yeah, NC State, Wake Forest, UNC, Pittsburgh, and the games that you already mentioned, Michigan going into Penn State, Oklahoma and Baylor, Mississippi State and Auburn. Yeah, we definitely have a few good games this week, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens from those games. And I can't wait to break it down for you guys once we get to college football and once we get to Friday. All right, anything else for Josh's corner? If not, we get to talk a little bit about the NBA.
No, we have a big story around that one from last night.
Yeah, so let's talk about the NBA. Let's talk about the full court press. Jared, what'd you think about the NBA last night?
NBA last night kind of circles around two things, or actually, you could say three things. I would say one that we'll talk about it in a second, but I'll skip over for now. The the Joker Morris
Yeah.
entanglements, and then obviously Steph Curry going ballistic against the Hawks. Finally, the Lakers beating the Hornets in overtime by 3 points. So those are the main three things for me, and we probably should just leave it at that, honestly.
Yeah, so I got to watch this. I didn't get to watch it live, which I'm kind of upset about, but I did get to see the Jokic and Morris thing. I Someone said something about their brothers tweeting
Yep,
on Twitter about it.
Jokic's brothers.
I didn't get to see the tweets about it, but I am gonna go check it out. I I mean, like, so I think Richard Jefferson had something on TikTok about this where, like, obviously Morris shouldn't have been running into Joker like that, but clearly you don't push over another player like that. And I'm sure it's hard to stand up when Joker pushes you. I mean, that's 280 pounds of pure man right there that just ends up pushing him over. Just an absolutely insane game to watch because I really thought the Heat were going to run away with that one, but also just really interesting to see that altercation.
Yeah, I mean, so Joker must have just had enough at that point
Mm.
because obviously the first one was I can't believe I don't know. Like this is just what the Morris brothers do. And that's another reason why I hate them. So,
Yeah.
this is exactly what they do on every single team that they play on. Now, is it a good fit for him? Absolutely, because the Miami team plays physical like this. But when you go and just try to take a cheap shot at a player like that, you're gonna get retaliation. And I know Joker's one of the more respected guys in the league, but he had just probably had enough at that point. I know it was early enough in the game too, to where maybe that wasn't like something that happened over several quarters, but yeah, I mean, I don't care how many if Joker gets suspended, he gets suspended. It was probably worth a shot.
Yeah, I know he got ejected last night. When it happened towards the end of the game, so the ejection really didn't matter. It's going to be interesting to see what happens from the league. Like, what are we going to get the? Are we going to see this end up in a suspension for one player, for both players? Is it just going to be a fine? Like, what's going to happen here is going to be really interesting. I see one of or Gusti said he sent me the tweet. I'm looking for it. Production room. Here we go. Oh, Jokic brothers. McMorris, you should leave. I'm gonna read this before reading it out loud. Be sure we will be waiting for you. Okay, I feel like I need to read those type of tweets to myself before reading them out loud, or else I'm gonna totally anchorman it, and just end up reading it word for word and get in trouble. But that's certainly an interesting tweet from the Jokic brothers.
Yeah, it was, and obviously Twitter and the internet have taken full advantage of this, and also the fact that I just shared something in there that said basically Morris is just being I'll just share my thoughts somewhere else, but
Uh oh.
uh,
Uh oh. Jared's gonna
nah,
get in trouble.
I was about to. I decided to
Oh
not.
yeah.
But he's you can tell he's literally acting in several videos, because he was when he got pushed down, he stayed on the ground, and then a teammate helped him up, carried him over to the bench 10 feet, and then he laid down in the center of the court again to just get a little bit more action on there. I think that one, it was a cheap shot, and just going by the NBA rules, like yes, there. I think that like he wasn't shooting necessarily, but yeah, no, it was uncalled for. Like I said, the Morris brothers just do this thing. I don't know why they do it. And he basically just acted like a soccer player out there for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, definitely did. Um, Wait till bro turned his. Oh, yeah. I saw the Goosty's telling us what tweet was replied to. I saw the tweet that Morris put out just said, waited till bro turned his back. And he said, noted. Next time they match
Oh,
up,
yeah,
or next
okay.
time the Suns match up with the. Or wait, where's the other Morris brother right now? No, he's in Clipperland. Once the Clippers match up with the Nuggets, that is certainly going to be an interesting matchup and something that we're gonna have to watch out for narrative wise. Yeah, going to be interesting to keep up with that. Want to talk about something that I know we've talked about a lot this season, but this Bulls team continues to prove that, just maybe they're the real deal, Jared. Just maybe they're going to make it happen because end up blowing out the Nets, having 20 plus point win against that Nets team, scoring 118, Nets only having 95. Now moved to 7-3. We talked about it. These first 10 games were going to be was really going to tell us what this Bulls team is going to look like. 7-3 through the first 10, certainly not a bad start.
No, not a bad start. DeRozan continues to impress me. I was just unsure how they were going to make. I don't know how they were going to move the ball with Levine, Lonzo, and DeRozan in that system. So they have continued to impress me from that respect. I just how long during I feel that this kind of just feels like a regular season thing to me, and I'm just gonna probably continue to dig myself a hole here. But they all five starters played 30 plus minutes,
Yeah.
or at least got to that 30-minute mark. And how long are they going to be able to do that for and continue to play in the playoffs? So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I will say, though, fourth quarter for the Bulls, very, very impressive. 40 points against the Nets. That kind of blew things out of the water there.
Yeah, because that game was close all the way up till then, and then we saw the Bulls really just take over, which was insane to watch. Good to see. I mean, this team continues to impress me at the very least. And I think it really goes to credit to Vucevic, who's kind of been willing to take a step back
Sure.
from the offensive side and let Demar throw up 20 shots, let Zach Levine throw up 20 shots each game. And so if we continue to see that, then I think this team will be just fine. I think this team, very impressive start, very good win against the Nets, and we're gonna have to see if they can make it continue. And like you said, I'm not gonna say DeRozan was washed necessarily in the offseason, or that's what I thought he was in the offseason, but he has certainly impressed me a lot more than I expected, and I kind of wish he was on my Lakers right now, but that's okay. Or we won't talk about that too much.
Yeah. Just this has nothing to do with anything we talked about, but I would have let's get a petition to get the Morris brothers versus the Jokic brothers in a boxing match. That's what I
Let's
want
do
to
them
see.
right now. Off season, let's go. I am down, and I'm sure they'd sell out. All right. Last thing I want to talk about from last night: Lakers facing off against Hornets. Felt like a really important game for this Lakers team, and you saw a lot of these Lakers guys show up big. You saw Anthony Davis being the leader in points, or being the co-leader in points, because we also saw Carmelo score 32 alongside seeing AD score 32. Or no, sorry, Carmelo scored 29. My bad. But AD was the leader in points. We saw Russell Westbrook have his classic triple double. He looked pretty good. We saw a lot of impressive things from this Hornets team as well. Terry Rozier showed up in this game. So did LaMelo. He also had a triple double. But Lakers pull it out, come out on top, and big win for this Lakers team that was kind of reeling. I've talked about it a ton, and I keep seeing people make fun of us on Twitter. I mean, like, okay, this Lakers team is going to struggle out of the gate. They're going to have a really bad defense out of the gate. I kind of expected all of this, but it was definitely a good win for this Lakers team without LeBron.
It was. They also played their depth too. I think that's kind of what won them the
Yeah.
game. Only two guys over 40 minutes, and the game went to overtime. But it's worth noting that the Hornets had four guys that played 40 minutes, with that fifth guy being Mason Plumlee, who played 35. So one thing that I took away from it, while LaMelo had a great game, it's also worth noting that he played over 40 minutes when he normally would not have. Even with,
Yeah.
if you take all the minutes in overtime, he still gets to 37. So what do you take away from that in terms of DFS? Because we were avoiding this guy because he was only playing 30 minutes a game.
Yeah, I think that on that Carmelo side, or you're talking about Carmelo, right?
LaMelo.
Oh,
Or
LaMelo.
42
My
yesterday.
bad.
Yep.
Yeah, LaMelo. Really interesting. I mean, so here's the thing. This was a really risky play last night. I ended up playing him in GPPs, but the game before he was saying to reporters about his coach that he needed to play more in the fourth. And it's like, all right, that's risky, because either
It
your
is.
coach agrees with you and you're a winner and you get to play more in the fourth, or your coach hates you and you get put in the doghouse and you're never playing a fourth quarter for the next 10 games, or you're not playing the majority of the fourth quarter for the next 10 games. It seemed like the coach was like, all right, I understand your sentiment. We'll start playing you in the fourth quarter. And they did exactly that. And you saw how it turned out. While this Hornets team wasn't able to win, I think keeping it close in Staples Center against the Lakers does show this Hornets team has some life.
Yeah, no, they looked good. Yes, they're 5-7. The Hornets are, but you take a look at the last couple of games that they've played. It's been really close in all of them except for one, where they got blown out by the Kings. So,
Didn't
um,
expect that.
yeah, I mean, losing to the Hornets, losing to the Clippers, losing to the Lakers, not it's obviously a rough road trip for them. But again, there are definitely things that you can take away from this. They're a team that's growing. They're one of the youngest teams, if not the youngest team in the NBA, and they're going to continue to have ups and downs. They've had some big wins over the course of the last couple of weeks, but they've also had some pretty rough stretches of losses too. So 5-7, not worried about it. I think that they still are a playoff team, but they're going to have to kind of rebound here over the next couple of games where they should have a little bit easier matchups.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Anything else from the NBA that you want to talk about? If not, we can move on to this next game.
Yeah, we have three games on the docket tonight. Should be a short slate. Should be a fun, hopefully not as exhausting podcast for your voice today. So three
Please.
games on the docket. Bucks Sixers with basically nobody on either team playing, so that'll be fun. Uh, Hawks Jazz later, and then the night game is Trailblazers Clippers, which I'm sure is going to be fireworks. So all games should stay close. BetOnline.ag has the biggest spread of the night at 8 for the Jazz. But I think that Atlanta has the pieces to make this thing competitive. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, pretty pretty short NBA slate tonight on a Tuesday where there usually are a little bit more games.
Yeah, we won't go too in depth on this, but do want to talk about the NBA slate, because we are at underdog mentality. Unless you have another underdog, I guess you could pick a college basketball underdog too. But if you're going to stay in the NBA, or just give us your college basketball, or geez, maybe I can get this right. Give us your underdog mentality pick.
Okay. Give me. I don't. I don't love it, but I think you could back the Blazers at plus 125. I'd rather not do a spread for the Blazers at plus 3 because I'd rather, I don't know, that kind of feels like you get bailed out by free throws either side. So I'm going to stay away from that. I'll just pick the Blazers to win outright at plus 125. And then let's talk about some college basketball, and I could probably get a pick or two in there.
Yeah, I will say for college basketball, I will start out and I'll say Michigan State ends up getting the underdog win here, plus 164. Um, we did just get the breaking news that Nick Chubb just tested positive for COVID.
Oh,
Um,
that's fun.
yeah, Dernish Johnson time again, I guess, for this week because that's what it's going to look like if he tests positive and continues to test positive. It's probably going to be Dernish Johnson time for that Browns team.
All right. Well, that's certainly interesting. After I definitely. Oh, also Demetric Felton also tested positive.
Oh wow,
So
so it's really
uh,
Dernish Johnson
it
time.
really could be, and I don't think Hunt's going to be back. So yeah, that could be interesting. Right after I was going to tout Nick Chubb as one of the best calls of the year for me.
Yeah, it definitely was one of the best calls of the year. All right, let's talk about some college basketball, though. The start of college basketball is here. The opener for the season is here, and I could not be more excited. Not providing this year, sadly. I know a lot of people like the content, but just too much on my plate to do college basketball. We are going to do something special for everyone that wants to take part in college basketball, though. Those details will come out later today once we get them finalized. But it's going to be a lot of fun. But let's talk about the start of college basketball. Let's talk about the two big games that we have this week or today. In the first game being Kansas and Michigan State. Any thoughts on this game?
They picked a couple of really good games to showcase on ESPN tonight. Uh, I guess for me, I still it's really really hard to ever play in Michigan State. So
Yeah.
I think I have a hard time saying that Kansas walks away cleanly with this one. Yes, they are a very talented team, and they deserve the 3 spot at least early on. So just don't rule out Michigan State tonight. That's all I'll say.
It's always never rule out Michigan State, right? Like it's a really tough place to play. They always have a good group of guys. They always play really tough, which is my big thing for Michigan State. I know the Jayhawks have a really solid team this year, though. I know Remy
They do.
Martin is coming over from Arizona State. He's
Yep.
a hooper, man. I am so
Yeah,
excited to
he
watch
is.
more of him. David McCormick, going to be a really good player for this team. And then they have Agabi as well, who's also a really good player. This Kansas team is going to be filled with superstars, but I think that Michigan State ends up winning this one at home today, but we'll just have to see. Last game that we're going to talk about, the Duke and Kentucky game. I mean, Duke and Kentucky, a great rivalry match, and we know that this is Coach K's last season, so like this is one of the biggest farewell tours for Duke that you'll see. One of the biggest farewell tours for any college basketball coach that you'll see for quite a while. So, what's your thoughts on this Duke and Kentucky game?
Yeah, I was just gonna start looking at their schedule because I honestly have not had a chance to see it. Maybe that's a conversation for another day outside of tonight. But I would really like to see if they what they do in terms of do they give him a bunch of big schools to face, or do they like give him a not a softer schedule, but kind of more favorable. I don't know. The NCAA loves Mike, and they should because he's
Yeah.
done a lot for the entire country and for a lot of programs. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it turns out tonight. They didn't give him a soft, easy schedule on the first game of the year, which is going to be a tough battle tonight. I know they're 3 point favorites. They were at 1 point favorites, so a little bit of a home field advantage here. So I don't know. I think that Duke obviously shows out tonight in terms of their support system, but Kentucky's going to be tough to overcome.
Yeah, really tough to overcome. I do really like this Duke team. I think you have a ton of solid guys that they ended up signing this year. They got the number 2 overall player in Paulo Banchero. You got AJ Griffin. You got Taylor Greaves as well. And then you also have Joey Baker, who I'm a huge Joey Baker fan. You have Wendell Moore Jr., who is a animal. And you also have Jeremy Roach, who's a solid guard. So I like this Duke team. I'm a big fan of this Duke team. I'm excited to see them play. I already see Duke is trash in the chat, so that's my cue to get on out of here before I get any more hate. Let's do that, Jared, and let's get out of here. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts? Yeah, short NBA slate tonight, and we're just happy to be back home and providing stuff for you guys. We'll be back live in about 50 minutes for a DraftKings First Look show for Week 10 of the NFL season.
Yep, we will. It'll be a lot of fun. Make sure to come tune in. Hopefully, my voice is getting better as the day goes on and as I continue to warm it up, but we'll just have to see. As always, my name is Joshua Reimer. Good morning and good skill.